Hey everybody, I am going to be doing a demo today of how to make a red velvet cake from scratch. One of the most important things for you to do to start is make sure that you have all of your ingredients. I like to group them in the order that I need them, so all of my wet ingredients here, dry ingredients, and then making sure you have all of your utensils. So you're going to need 3 cake pans. If you want to do a 2-layer, you can do 2, but I like to do a 3-layer on this. You're going to need 4 mixing bowls, but I have 3, 2 medium, 1 kind of small, and then 1 large one, which you'll see towards the end when we start to mix everything together. So I'm going to get into it and do everything in batches. As you can see, my workstation is not as large as other workstations, so I'm going to start with the dry and then the wet, and then we're going to combine them all together. Okay guys, first you're going to measure out 2½ cups of flour. And I like to use cake flour when I'm making cakes. It just makes it a little bit better. It makes it taste like it's straight from a bakery. You can use all-purpose, but I promise you, if you just get some cake flour, it's gonna be that much better. So the first thing you do is measure out 2½ cups of flour, and then add in your baking soda and your salt. Now you're going to add in 3/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Then you're going to give that a stir, just mix it all up. Okay, now you're going to sift in 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. What I like to do as I go, as I'm done with ingredients, I like to go ahead and put them away, so it makes sure I make sure my space is nice and clean. So you'll find that that will help you, and it'll keep you from getting overwhelmed, especially if you're not used to cooking cakes from scratch. You just want to make sure that your area is very clean, as clean as you can possibly get. You're just going to stir that in, and once you stir this in, you can set it off to the side, because now we're going to go to some wet ingredients. So next we're going to add the butter and the sugar together, and we're going to cream them just until it's nice and fluffy. So you're going to need 2 cups of sugar and then 3 sticks of softened butter. And the way that you can tell if your butter is softened, and you know, sometimes we'll say, oh, have your ingredients at room temperature. When you take it out, it'll be cold. When it starts to heat up, it'll start to sweat, and it'll have, you know, that condensation. And then when it's at room temperature, the condensation will go away. So it's not at the level of being spoiled yet, but it is at the point of you're ready to cook with it, and it's at room temperature. So go ahead and measure out your butter and your sugar. So for this portion, I do suggest using an electric mixer because it's going to take you at least 2 to 3 minutes to get this nice and fluffy, and you'll need some power behind it. But for a lot of this, you'll see that I'm going to be whisking by hand. So if you take a look at this, it's nice and creamy, almost looks like a whipped cream, but that's the texture that you're going for. Now you want to add in 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and you just want to mix it very gently. Just until it is incorporated in. Now you want to add in your eggs one at a time. Again, it's 3 whole eggs and then 2 egg yolks. My husband loves when I make this cake because that means he can get egg whites for breakfast the next day. So just take your time with it and blend it in one at a time, just until it's blended. Don't overmix it. Okay guys, this is how it's gonna look when it's all nice and blended. Okay guys, now you're gonna add in your food coloring. You're gonna need a whole fluid ounce. It's gonna make your cake nice and red. Now you're just gonna stir it until it's good and blended. Okay guys, when it's done, it's gonna look this nice and red. You wanna make sure you scrape down the sides as good as you can so you can get all that goodness in there. And now you're gonna add in your buttermilk. You're gonna need 1 1/3 cup. 1/3 cup. Then you're gonna add in your vinegar and your vanilla. Then you're just gonna give that a nice stir and blend it up. At this point, I'm preheating my oven. I have a convection oven, so it doesn't take long to heat up and spread throughout. but if you're using an electric stove, you might want to go ahead and preheat it before you start. But you can also, with a gas stove, it doesn't take long to heat up and flow throughout, so you don't have to waste a whole lot of energy and or gas if you're using those type of stoves. This is where your large bowl comes into play. So you are going to mix in 1/3 of your flour mixture, just 1/3, half of your buttermilk mixture here, or your butter mixture rather. Then you could put in half of the buttermilk. Then you're gonna give that a whisk. You're gonna make sure you just blend it a little slowly. We don't want our mix to be runny. We want it to be nice and hearty and beautiful. Then you're gonna put in 1/3 more and the rest of your ingredients, and just keep mixing it until it's nice and done. So I'm gonna put in the other half, put in the rest of this. Now we're mixing in just the last little bit of the flour mixture. Now that it's nice and mixed, you'll see that it has a nice, thick, rich consistency. So it should be thick like that. It shouldn't be runny. If you turn out with a runny batter, chances are you have overmixed it, and it's not going to make the cake bad. It'll be a little dense rather than fluffy. So it's not the end of the world if it turns out like that. Just know I hand mixed a lot of things. I've only used the electric mixer once. So do that. If you have a KitchenAid where you can put it on the very low speeds, that's a good one to use. But if not, good old-fashioned elbow grease will do. Now you want to evenly distribute your cake batter into each pan. Remember, you can always add to, but you can't subtract, so just measure the best that you can. If you've been cleaning up as you go like I've been, then you have a nice clean workspace. And since your cakes are cooking, this is the perfect time for you to go ahead and do your frosting. After we do the frosting, we are going to leave it in the fridge just until the cake is done. And while the cake is cooling, we're going to take it back out. So we're going to put it in the fridge for it to set up, and then take it back out so it's nice and loose when we get ready to spread it on the cake. Now we have everything in here. We're going to give this a nice whisk with our electric mixer. This is how it should look after you've blended the cream cheese, butter, and vanilla. And now we're going to add in the confectioner sugar. I have this nice spatula that holds on to the bowl, so that makes it great for scraping down the sides. This is how your frosting is going to look. It's going to be a perfect blend of creamy and sweetness, and you're just going to sit this in the fridge while your cake finishes cooking, and then while your cake is cooling, take it back out so it can come back to this creaminess. It's just going to set up while your cake is cooking. Okay guys, once your cakes are finished, allow them to cool for at least 10 minutes and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely before frosting. We're going to start to frosting the cake. What I suggest doing is just putting a few big blobs on your cake, and then you're going to work it around. This will help prevent the cake crumbs from getting onto your frosting. So just doing like this and working it around just so it stays nice and put together. If you want to do some fancy swirls, you can definitely do that, but I suggest doing all 3 layers first and then smoothing down the sides at the end. So I like to work it in a circular motion for each layer. Layer 1 is done, and we are going to go ahead and put on layer 2. Layer is done. Some of the crumbs from the second layer stuck to the pan. And if that happens, just know it's not the end of the world. We're gonna do something really cool with those crumbs at the end of the cake and frosting. Now we have the third layer on. We're gonna start working the sides. So all you have to do is take some of the frosting and just work it on the sides, just really easy. Is the finished product. I am not a cake decorator by any means, but I took those crumbs and just sprinkled them on top. If you like this cake plate, I got it from the Goodwill for just $2. So check out your local Goodwill and you can find a nice glass cake plate yourself. If you try this, let me know how it turns out. Cake cutting with floss. Amazing. Learn something new.
Put that on Pinterest now.
Birthday pie day.
Celebration of Independence, Noah. Most cakes that I cut with floss don't have this many layers, so this is beautiful.
I know. How many layers did you do? 3.
Wow. She filmed it for the YouTube channel. We're gonna be there for the subscribers.
Jerry, do you like to cook too? He cooks a steak, like his steaks are amazing, and I love his spaghetti. I was like, oh, I like eating. She was like,
Perfection.
Oh, so you like to
There you go.
No, I like the babies are enjoying the cake.
How is it, Noah? Is it
You like the
good?
cake?
Yeah.
I can't. Then he gonna say, yeah. He gonna get a whole fork full of frosting. Oh, he gonna be bouncing off the walls.
Good.
Followed by a crash.
I'm an unpaid spokeswoman, and I would say that red velvet cake was bbomb.com, and yes, we gonna need to save some of this to the side.